Call to order regular scheduled meeting of the Calistoga, Planning Commission, October 24th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Noted for the record that all commissioners are in attendance, including also our new staff members, Senior Planner Zach Tessinger. He's also the assistant to the city manager.
Welcome aboard.
I made him come tonight.
Okay, good. Could we all please rise for Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to C, public comments. Public comments is an opportunity to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that do not appear on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The Commission cannot consider any issue or take action on items raised during public comments. Anyone out there like to come up and have anything to say? And apparently not. We're moving on. Okay, moving to D, adoption of the meeting agenda as presented. Will I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Communications and correspondence, staff?
None received since distribution of the packet.
Thank you. Consent calendar, minutes of approval from September 26, 2018. Anyone have any discussion? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Down to public hearings. G1, use permit amendment, UP 2018-10. Consideration of an increase in the maximum rent levels for the Garnet Creek Apartments restricted affordable housing units at 1139 Lincoln Avenue from 47% to 60 to 80% of area median income. Staff.
Thank you. The property at 1139 Lincoln Avenue is the site of the Embrace Calistoga Bed and Breakfast Inn, which was originally approved in 2000. The property is also improved with 8 small one-bedroom apartments located in 2 structures at the rear of the main building, and these are known as the Garnet Creek Apartments. As a condition of approval of the inn's original use permit, the monthly rent for 4 of the apartments was restricted to affordable levels in order to maintain the affordability for the tenants at the time. And the owner was required to extend the same rents to future occupants for a period of 30 years. There was subsequently an amendment to that original use permit to allow the rents to rise over time. The initial intent was to convert those apartments to in-rooms and construct replacement housing off-site, and when it became clear that wasn't happening, and as the years ticked by, having them fixed at a certain amount, $525, didn't prove workable. So there was an amendment to allow them to rise over time, and they were pegged at 47% of the area median income, which was roughly the equivalent of the $525 that was charged back in 2000, 2001. So the rents for the property as affordable units are currently $850 to $950. The inn's owners are requesting that the maximum rents in eligible households for the apartments be increased from 47% to between 60 and 80% of AMI. This would increase the number of eligible tenants, as well as allow rents to increase to approximately $1,118 at the low end of the scale at the 60% of AMI, area median income, or up to $1,490 at the top end of the range, or 80% of AMI for a 2-person household. So at this point, 18 years later, none of the original tenants reside on the property, and the city and the housing authority under contract with the city have continued to monitor the households when the apartments become vacant. And we also did a staff level amendment to allow the 4 units to float within the 8-unit complex. Originally they were stipulated by apartment. So just by way of reference, several recent affordable apartment projects in the city, including Calistoga Family Apartments and Calistoga Senior Apartments, limit eligible households and rents to 30 to 60% of AMI. Allowing the property owners to use the 60% of AMI threshold for the restricted apartments would permit them to increase the rent by a modest amount over time, but the units would then be classified in the low income affordability category. Right now they're classified in the very low, which is less than 50% of AMI. So 60% would be a modest increase in the rent and would be the top of the range that is being allowed and charged at the recent apartments that I was just talking about. Staff, however, does not support the request for increasing the maximum rent to 80% of AMI. That rent would be essentially the level that would be charged in the free market and would be inconsistent with the Calistoga housing element, which an objective which seeks to minimize the conversion of affordable units to market rate units. If the Planning Commission supports the request to increase the maximum rents in eligible households, we recommend that you limit that to 60% of AMI threshold for that reason. Alternatively, you could approve a higher income cap if you feel it's suitable. And I've drafted a resolution for your consideration which reflects the 60% of AMI. And the applicant is here this evening.
Any questions of staff?
Microphone. Thank you.
Permit was put together. Were there any concessions granted for the
No, it wasn't under density bonus or anything at that time. It was just to ensure that those 4 affordable units weren't lost and the tenants weren't evicted.
There's a chart here that shows rentals over the years. If I'm understanding that, then 2 of these units of the 4 are not restricted. But it's not clear to me what the rents on those are compared to the rents on those that are restricted.
Well, actually, only 4 of the 8 have to be restricted. 2 of them are used by the inn. One is the innkeeper's unit, and one is the B&B kitchen. And then the other 2 can be charged whatever rent they want. Also, something else that changes over time is if somebody who comes in as a single-person household and marries and their household income increases, there's a desire not to require them to leave because of that. So that is also reflected in some of the higher rents. I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Well, it shows, like, take the year 2017. It shows that all of those are at the same rent.
Right. And then, yeah, those, maybe Chris can explain what happened there. Yeah, would you mind if, do you have any other questions for me?
Well, I had that, and then I
yeah.
noticed that the rents, if at the 60%, would go allowably, if that happened, up to $1,118.
That's right.
Which compares with a year ago, or 2017, of 741. That's a 51% increase. So that's a big. You said a modest increase, but that.
Well, from the existing rates that are charged right now.
But I would be interested in knowing what the market rates are.
I couldn't honestly tell you what the market rates are.
By those I mean the unrestricted rates.
Well, 2 of these are unrestricted at the time, at the moment. So.
But are they at 741?
Maybe that. No, none of them are at 741. They're at either 850 or 950. They're all in that right-hand column right now.
But I think that Commissioner Abernathy's, we're looking for clarification as to what is the genesis of the 1-year big jump, and that so making them all the same.
Right. Do you want to?
This is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open it up
Yeah.
and see if the applicant wants to.
I'm going to have the applicant answer that because he works every year
Right.
on the monitoring with the Housing Authority and can ask for increases due to utility costs or things like that. So hopefully he can answer that very
If
detailed
you'll just
question.
give your name.
Chris Johansson.
Thank you.
So the chart that you're looking at shows the apartments, and by year. We acquired the property in 2010, and if you look at the rates associated with it, none of them were really in compliance with what was going on with the Housing Authority. So when we took over, we actually reduced all of the rents to what was the affordable rate at the time, which was $741 a month. We have not changed any of the rents until this past year. The issue that we ran into this year is 2 of our tenants, one of which, I don't want to say none of the tenants have been there. Danny was actually born in the apartment. His mom passed several years ago. He's still a tenant there. He works at the school district now, and he makes above the very low income. So working with the Housing Authority, they didn't suggest, they told me I needed to raise the rents on those people that were making more. And Lynn and I had a conversation about it, and I'm not quite sure if you had any further conversations with them. Their goal for us raising the rents would be to have them leave and then move somebody in that is more qualified. Our goal here is not to raise the rents to what they're 364 square feet. They are not huge apartments. Our goal is not to have people have their rents raised and or be asked to leave because they're starting to do better or they're working 2 jobs. So at the beginning of this year, the 4 affordable units went from $741 to $850, and the 2 apartments that are making above what the 47% requirement was, we were told to raise them to $950. So that's what the current rates are right now. We could have, over the past several years, based on utilities and the increases, raised the rents, but we chose not to. Does that answer your question?
Can I?
Absolutely.
So if I understand this, the theory here is that by raising the maximum percentage of the AMI, you're able to maintain a lower rent.
I'm able to not have to evict people because they're making too much.
But you're able to not forcibly have somebody have to move because they make too much money.
Correct. And I had a conversation with the Housing Authority, I think it was last week. I don't know if you had a follow, is it Lane? I forget her name. It's
either Andrea or Lark.
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 Started with an L. And there are 3, thoughts about people if they are in an affordable unit and they make more, like they get a second job or they get a better paying job. One is to raise their rent to would be whatever their current index looks like for that. The second is to raise it to market rate and give them basically a year to find a new place. And the third is tell them that they make too much and they have to leave. Mm-hmm. And given the housing issue that we've got in the town, I found that to be, that wasn't palatable for me.
Do we have some idea of what percentage of Calistoga tenants are considered very low income versus moderate? It seems like there could be, a great demand that there's just nobody can be eligible under the services.
Or low versus very low.
Yeah, low versus very low.
Yeah, and I personally do not know that. I have a chart in it, I don't know if it's in here or not, that was included that shows the units within the town. It is not in it. I got it from the Housing Authority. What percentages are in each one of the categories? And there are more in the very low and low categories, or the very low than the low and the moderate.
I think the council has asked, that's a need we have in the community, is the moderate and the low.
Right.
We've had a lot of government subsidized housing here in the last few years, which has been awesome and helped fill that need. But the people that are in that middle range are getting squeezed out because we have so little. I do have a question. Are you okay with the way this is written up by the 60%, Chris? You had 60 to 80, and the way this is written up to 60.
I had written that when I submitted it originally.
Okay.
So if I can go back to answer the question, based on the statistics that I got from the Housing Authority, of the 47 units within Calistoga, 5 are extremely low, 32 are very low, and 10 are in the low category, for a total of 47, if I'm reading that right.
Oh, I think, yeah, Chris is referring to something that we put together of all the subsidized units and the various income distributions within those that are deed restricted.
Right.
So some, they include the family apartments, senior apartments, La Pradera, Palisades apartments, et cetera. So.
Yeah, and certainly our last 2 projects are primarily in the low.
It's in the very low.
Very low, yes. And that needs
and extremely
filled,
low, which is 30% or below.
In desperate need of that, low and moderate, and we don't have anything at this point.
But that's 30 senior income and units, and then 48 at family apartment. Well, 47 because the manager's unit is exempted.
So staff recommends 60% AMI. What benefit do you see if it was raised higher, up to 80?
I don't really plan on changing the rents. I just don't want to have to evict somebody. You know, my original, when Lynn and I had the conversation, again, they're 364 square feet. They're attached to my bed and breakfast. You know, they're a benefit to me right now just because of when we started the business, they were my cash flow when we first started. That's what paid the mortgage when we started the inn. We have good tenants now. If you see in the first sheet, when we got the apartments, we had 6 people living in one of them, in 364 square feet, and several of them that had 4 living in it. Right now, all are singles. One is a brother, 2 brothers, and one is a husband and wife and 2 kids. So we still have 4 people living in 364 square feet, which I can't personally imagine. Since I lived in one of them for 3 months, with 2 people and a dog.
Well, good tenants are priceless, that's for sure.
Well,
if you're looking
they are.
keep them in their homes, that's...
And obviously, good tenants that are 50 feet away from bedrooms at my bed and breakfast are important to me also.
Right.
I was intending, my thought before the meeting was to ask you, I understand in the staff report what the ask was. I didn't understand what the why was. I think that you've answered what the why is. The question I would have now is, if the commission raised that percentage to 60%, would that at least for the foreseeable future ameliorate the potential of having to evict any of your current tenants?
I believe so, yes. Now, every year, and that's where we went to floating, we have one tenant that got a second job. So that put them over, and so by having it floating versus designated units, but I believe, and I would have to go back and look at the documentation we turn in every year to the Housing Authority, I had calculated a percentage of where each one of them was versus the median to kind of see where they fell in that range, and that's when I worked with Andrea with the Housing Authority when she had said 2 of them you need to raise to 950.
Okay.
And quite frankly, if we approve this, I actually plan on moving them back from 950 to 850. I think it's wrong to penalize somebody for doing better. That's my own personal feeling.
They are lucky tenants.
Well, we're lucky to have them.
Well, we're a lucky town.
This is a public hearing, so if anyone else would like to come up, if not, then thank you, Chris. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further comments from commissioners?
Well, I will say I came, I met with Lynn the other day, and my initial thought, not understanding your circumstances, was a deal's a deal. And when even though you did not develop the approval of the project, you accepted it when you purchased the property, and there's 12 years still to run on this agreement for the 30-year limit, and that was kind of my coming in the door attitude. I first will say I applaud you guys of how you've made the Embrace such a terrific destination, and what a contribution to the town you've been. So having said that, I would certainly support raising it to the 60%. I do at this point have indigestion over 80%, and I suppose that if the circumstances were exactly the same at a later date, I would be willing to revisit it again. But as of tonight, my approach would be to concur on raising it to 60%.
And to clarify, that rent right now, the 11 whatever, would continue to increase over time. We do an annual adjustment. That's
I
key to
have
the
to
Napa County.
I have to say I had the exact same reaction as Les, except I didn't get indigestion, but
Okay, that being said, do I have a motion?
That's why you're thin and I'm fat. I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2018-18 approving use permit 2018-10 to amend the affordable housing restrictions for the Garnet Creek Apartments to a maximum of 60% of AMI.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to G2, setback variance, VA 2018-3, consideration of a variance requested to allow a reduction in required front yard setback from 15 feet to 8 feet for the construction of a porch, and B, a reduction in the required interior side yard setback from 5 feet to 3 feet to allow the construction of a single-car garage at 1305 Myrtle Street.
And, Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself.
Very well. Have a good evening.
Potential economic conflict of interest. So,
Okay, staff.
ready?
Ready.
Okay, Russell. Thank you. The applicants are requesting setback variances, as you mentioned, to the front and the interior side yard setback for this property, which is coincidentally separated by a parking lot and a street from Embrace Calistoga, and it just ended up on the same agenda. And part of the reason that this is before you is because this is a 7,200 square foot property. However, the parking lot encroaches into part of it, and there's also a 5.5-foot wide easement that runs along the site's rear property line, which was actually supposed to be, turns out, it was supposed to be along the east property line to accommodate the parking lot, but due to an error in the legal description, it got put on the rear property line. So there are some encumbrances on this property, besides the fact that it's undersized and it's in the R3 district, which requires larger lots than the 7,200 square feet. So the parking lot encroaches approximately 8 feet into the subject property, and then, as I mentioned, there's a 5.5-foot wide easement along the back of it. The site is currently occupied by an 1,100 square foot single-story, single-family residence, and it currently has a small covered entry that extends into the 15-foot minimum required front yard setback. So there's a legal non-conforming situation with the covered entrance as it is right now. Another thing to consider is that a section of public right-of-way with a sidewalk runs along the property's frontage, extending 18 feet from the face of curb to the property line. So as is found throughout the downtown, there's a very generous setback from the face of curb to the front property line, and then the house is set back beyond that. So that's contrasted with your more modern subdivisions where the house is about 20 feet from the front property line, which is 10 feet possibly from the base of curb or less. The applicants wish to expand the residence by adding an approximately 200 square foot covered porch at the front and a single car garage on the west side, the interior side yard. The proposed design of the additions would reflect that of the residence's architecture. And as is shown in your packet, we were able to find an insurance map from 1886 that appears to include a front porch that extends across its front, which also appears to have been enclosed at some point. And as also further outlined in your written staff report, there are 4 findings that the Commission would have to make in granting relief to allow an encroachment into the side yard and also an encroachment by the porch into the front yard. The basis for making those findings is included in the report and also is based on the statement that was submitted by the applicant. They were able to demonstrate that there are many other examples of properties in the neighborhood that have non-conforming porch and garage setbacks, And additionally, of course, porches and single-car garages are common features on lots developed with single-family dwellings throughout the downtown. The variance would not materially be detrimental to properties in the vicinity. Immediately adjacent to the proposed garage is a vacant area on the adjoining property to the west, and so there would not be a building separation issue. And furthermore, the front porch would fulfill one of the objectives of the city's single-family residential design guidelines, which are encouraged to create an attractive interface with the front yard and the public area. They're also encouraged to have a minimum depth, of 6 feet, and this one, in this case, is 7 feet, and that would allow for circulation around furniture that would be placed on the porch. And in terms of the minimum variance that would alleviate this hardship, the proposed garage dimensions are the minimum to comfortably accommodate one car. They're only asking for a single-car garage. And therefore, staff believes that the necessary findings can be made that this is a unique property that's simply, well, not simply, but is trying to provide some of the amenities such as a porch and a garage that are commonplace throughout the downtown residential area. And we're recommending approval. The applicants are here.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions of staff?
There's a fireplace down on the site plan?
I do not believe it is.
And would the garage extension trigger any fire-rated openings or anything like that if for example, the neighboring property to go into their allowed setback?
I do not know, because the architect left, if that's going to be a fire-rated wall, but I'm assuming since it's within 3 feet that it would. We would assume that there would be when it comes to the building permit, and I believe the code requires that.
That burden would be handled by this project, not.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Any other commissioners? This is
Just looks like the variance, the actual variances that are on that blocker, there are more of those than there are in conformity.
Conform to the, yes, it's very hard to, as we know, retroactively apply development standards to development. So.
And I'm curious as to how many variance requests do you get that are denied before they even get to us? Because their requirements are so stringent.
We do, you probably see a very small percentage of people that want them. In fact, we didn't have any applications last year. Had 3. What's the number on this one? 3. We had the Dwyer one, and then the one next to Dwyer. But yeah, we do share with the applicants that you are stringent in making these findings, and that you know it's you have to make a case. You have to show exceptional circumstances, which I
Clearly,
believe
this
in this
seems to
case
be a good
exist.
case.
Okay.
Any other comments? I will open the public hearing, and if anyone likes to come up and speak, they're welcome to. If not,
Good evening. I'm Robert Tufts. I am the owner at 1305 Myrtle. I just wanted to thank you all for your time. We're new to the town. My wife, Janet, and I, we happen to live behind the Embrace. We love this town, and we're super excited about resuscitating a over 100-year-old home back to the standard of Calistoga, which is what we really love. So thank you for that.
thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we'll move over. And any comments from commissioners? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll move that the Planning Commission adopt variance 2018-19, approving variance VA 2018-3 for reduced setbacks at 1305 Myrtle Street.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very well.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to H, matters initiated by commissioners. Anything exciting out there, commissioners? Nothing to bring forward tonight? Golly, Liz. Okay, and we're up to the director's report.
I just wanted to clarify a statement that I believe I made when we were talking about the number of cannabis plants to allow outdoors. There was some discussion about where the 6 plants came from, and if it was, and I had believed that that was a limitation assessed by the state, and that was actually in the proposition that enabled all of this all these cannabis regulations to be loosened up. So it does specifically talk about 6 plants per household, and then it says that the city may, or any jurisdiction may reasonably restrict the number of plants, but 6 is allowed. No, well, it's a ballot measure, so, you know, whoever wrote it came up with the 6, and so that's as far as I got with it. But I just wanted to clarify that with you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess we're moving to adjournment. Prior to adjournment, is it November 14th? 14th. Will be our next scheduled meeting? Okay, well, then we'll adjourn to November 14th. Thank you very much. Oh, where's my gavel?